Over the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of talk regarding layoffs that occurred with a Marvel Rivals team, that specifically being the Seattle branch, with headlines such as Polygon writing, "This is such a weird industry. Marvel Rivals lays off NA-based team amid explosive success. The biggest game this year isn't immune to layoffs." Now, before we delve further into this news and NetEase's response to clarify some very important things that aren't being mentioned by a lot of Western outlets, it's important to take note of how disingenuous Western gaming journalists tend to be. And as an example of that, we can take a look at the Firewalk Studios situation, that being the devs behind Concord. You may recall during that situation that when the Concord devs were being laid off, a lot of these gaming journalists and modern audience types were trying to drum up sympathy for these individuals, essentially trying to guilt trip gamers for not supporting Concord, acting like it was all of our duty to buy games like Concord so these sort of devs don't lose their jobs. That's just one example, but we've seen similar sentiment reflected again and again, where a AAA game marketed towards the modern audience types flops, and then the modern audience and their gaming journalist buddies try to guilt trip gamers for not supporting the game. "Why didn't you buy this game?" You know how it goes. And so coming back to the present time, given this news with Marvel Rivals, a lot of these individuals are now trying to use this situation to bolster their arguments, essentially saying things like, "See, the industry is such a mess that even layoffs occur at Marvel Rivals. All these devs need to be supported more." And once again, these are the sort of people that will be first in line to defend games like Veilguard and Concord, etc., etc. So they're essentially conflating things together and also blowing things out of proportion, trying to act like these layoffs have been a massive blow to the Marvel Rivals team. I'm even saying that it was like a core team that got laid off. But in reality, this team mostly focused on research and development, and it's a team of 6 people. Or I suppose I should say it was a team of 6 people over in Seattle. Now, of course, you're welcome to feel any sort of way you want about that. I'm just clarifying some of the misinformation that's been spread about this stuff, because once again, gaming journalists and certain types of people out there would have you believe certain things about this situation that are just overtly not true. Anyways, outlet 80.lv would talk about this disingenuous behavior from various gaming journalists in their coverage, where they say, "Update. NetEase has responded to 80 Level's inquiry about the layoffs, but unfortunately their reply from the spokesman was the very same write-up they sent to PC Gamer. Below is the full email the NetEase representative sent us, with some details regarding Rival's main leadership positions not being affected, which for some reason were omitted by PC Gamer." So we have the full message here from NetEase, which reads, "We recently made the difficult decision to adjust Marvel Rivals' development team structure for organizational reasons, and to optimize development efficiency for the game. This resulted in a reduction of a design team based in Seattle that is part of a larger global design function in support of Marvel Rivals. We appreciate the hard work and dedication of those affected and will be treating them confidentially and respectfully with recognition for their individual contributions. We want to reassure our fan base that the core development team for Marvel Rivals, which continues to be led by lead producer Weihang Wu and game creative director Guangyan Chen in Guangzhou, China, remains fully committed to delivering an exceptional experience. We are investing more, not less, into the evolution and growth of this game. We're excited to deliver new superhero characters, maps, features, and content to ensure an engaging live service experience for our worldwide player base." And hopping over to PC Gamer, it is very interesting. Just like 80 Levels said, they seem to have omitted certain things from their coverage. We can see in their part of the coverage where they talk about that statement, they don't just repost the full statement like we saw 80 Level do. Instead, specifically in the second paragraph, they cut out the part about Marvel Rivals still being led by lead producer Weihang Wu and game creative director Guangyan Chen. There was also misinformation about the situation being spread over on Reddit, for example. Yeah, surprising no one, of course. Such as this post that says, "Apparently the Marvel Rivals team was just laid off, including the director." Yeah, nah, that's not what happened. Eventually, that post was removed by mods for the misleading title. But that's not the only example. We've also got this post with over 4,200 upvotes from R Games titled Thaddeus Sasser, Marvel Rivals director. Quote, "My stellar, talented team just helped deliver an incredibly successful new franchise in Marvel Rivals for NetEase Games, and were just laid off." This can also be seen as misleading because while Sasser did have some level of a director title, he's not the official director for Marvel Rivals. The closest person to hold that title would be Guangyan, the creative director who's been seen in various promotional materials for Rivals. And even he doesn't have a title that's just like Marvel Rivals director. Presumably there are various types of directors, not just like, as the Reddit post suggests, one director of all. And certainly not Thaddeus, the one from Seattle who just got laid off. Although a minority, there were still fortunately some people in that thread pointing out the misinformation. For example, this response saying, "Not the creative director Guangyang. This seems like it was some sort of R&D studio based in Seattle rather than the main dev team in China." According to Sasser's page, they've been working at NetEase Games on Rivals since January 2023. On the post about the layoffs, he describes a lot of his and another coworker's time as a sort of R&D branch, coming up with new level design mechanics, gameplay mechanics, and so on. Maybe the team didn't work as they'd like, or maybe pure greed of laying them off now, thinking they don't need them despite the success. That comment getting a few edits, as the articles eventually updated their information. They got a response that reads, "The title is incredibly misleading and this post should be at the top. Anyone who doesn't engage with developer-related side of the game would read Marvel Rivals director, quote-unquote, and assume him to be the director, the main guy in charge of the creative vision for a very successful game, not the head of a tiny NA support studio doing R&D for the actual Chinese developers, and stellar talented team, quote-unquote, would make you think about hundreds of people, not literally 6. One of the responses they got would quote the title is incredibly misleading part, saying, guessing that was on purpose. So let's check out this comment because there's also quite a callback here, saying, 6 people only, this is blown out of proportion. And this user then saying, that's an understatement. This is a Bayonetta 3 VA situation again for the subreddit. And yeah, I covered that situation on the channel a few years ago, so you might recall that here if you watch those videos too. That situation was freaking crazy. The voice actress attempting to essentially throw a sympathy party for herself while pretty much lying about everything, ultimately becoming yet another reason on the giant list of reasons for why people don't like English voice actors. Essentially, the voice actress was lying about how much she was paid and trying to manipulate the internet into becoming her personal army, trying to get people to even like boycott Bayonetta and to go after the series creator Hideki Kamiya, which eventually Hideki and Platinum Games responded to her, and her lies ultimately getting exposed. But now circling all that back over to Reddit, as they mentioned that was apparently an insufferable time over on Reddit. And that's because so many people were instantly siding with the VA. By the way, this was also happening on Twitter. A lot of people were just siding with the VA because, oh, we need to always support English voice actors no matter what. You know those sort of people. Hint, it tends to be the modern audience types. And so these fools were getting played by this voice actress and trying to act like they were holier than thou and morally better than anyone who was actually looking at the situation and criticizing what was occurring. And then as mentioned, eventually she got exposed anyways for her lies, and all those people who were blindly siding with her ended up looking really foolish. And of course, that's putting it nicely. Now back to Rivals, it seems like a similar thing has been occurring over on Reddit with people believing the various misinformation that's been propagated and standing on a soapbox, throwing a pity party for these devs while blowing their roles out of proportion. And as we discussed way earlier, trying to use the situation as some kind of evidence for why gamers need to support all devs, even including those who make modern audience slop. Basically like, see if it can happen to these high-ranking Marvel Rivals devs, it can happen to any devs. The industry is such a mess, we need to support them all. Of course, reasonable people and gamers in the loop with this sort of gaslighting are going to deny that and are going to look at the surrounding context. In closing, something else I said earlier is that you're welcome to feel any sort of way you want about the Seattle team. I'm not telling you how to feel about this situation. I'm simply giving you some of the context and facts about what's occurred, and I'm going to leave it there. So let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed my coverage, please also consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.